Why you sometimes feel like you're performing even when you're alone. There is a strange moment that happens when nobody is watching. You are alone in your room. The door is closed. No one is asking anything from you. You are walking around, listening to music, cooking, getting dressed, or doing something completely ordinary. And suddenly, you become aware of yourself. Not just aware of what you are doing, but aware of how you look doing it. For a few seconds, it feels as though an invisible audience has entered the room, but nobody is there. So why does it sometimes feel like you are performing even when you are completely alone? Most people might call it insecurity or self-consciousness. But there is a deeper possibility. Sometimes the audience disappears long before its influence does. And when other people's expectations become deeply internalized, you can continue monitoring yourself even after nobody is watching. For the sake of this video, let's call this the invisible audience. It describes the experience of carrying an imagined observer inside your own mind, an internal sense that you are being evaluated, even when there is no physical audience. And once you recognize it, several strange behaviors begin to make more sense. Imagine someone named Daniel. Daniel lives alone. Nobody tells him how to dress, what music to play, or how he should spend his Saturday afternoon. Yet sometimes he catches himself behaving as though someone might walk through the door at any moment. He changes clothes before leaving the house, even for a quick trip to the store. He rehearses conversations that have not happened. He catches himself imagining how successful he must look when he finishes something difficult. But occasionally, when he knows nobody will ever see him, something changes. He dances badly. He talks to himself. He eats whatever he wants. He lies on the floor doing absolutely nothing. Those moments can feel strangely intimate, because there is no character to maintain. That tells us something important. Feeling like you are performing is not always about pretending to be someone else. Sometimes it is about constantly managing how you are being perceived. And eventually, that management can become automatic. You learn what gets approval, what gets criticism, what makes you look weak, what makes you look intelligent, what makes you appear successful, and what makes people uncomfortable. At first, those rules come from outside. Eventually, you can carry them inside. This is the first layer of the invisible audience, learned observation. As we grow, we discover ourselves partly through other people's reactions. A child learns quickly that certain behaviors produce warmth, attention, laughter, praise, or connection, while others may produce embarrassment, correction, or rejection. Over time, nobody needs to say, "Don't do that." You already anticipate the reaction. And anticipation can become self-monitoring. Eventually, nobody has to say anything. The person begins watching themselves. The same thing can happen with achievement. Someone who receives attention mainly when they perform well may eventually develop an internal rule. If I am not doing something valuable, I am not doing enough. Now imagine that person having a completely free Sunday. Nobody is disappointed. Nobody is checking. Yet resting feels uncomfortable. They start organizing something, checking messages, learning something, or working. The task may not even matter. What matters is escaping the feeling of being evaluated. This leads to the second layer, internalized evaluation. The question changes from, "What do other people think of me?" to, "What should someone like me be doing right now?" That second question is powerful, because the audience no longer needs to be present. You carry the standard with you. You may buy something and immediately imagine explaining the purchase. You may post something and mentally watch yourself through the eyes of strangers. You may achieve something and immediately imagine how you would tell people about it. Even your emotions can become performances. You become excited, then wonder whether you are being too much. You make a mistake, then immediately ask what the mistake says about you. The invisible audience is no longer simply judging your behavior. It is helping define your identity. This is where Carl Jung's idea of the persona becomes useful. Jung described the persona as the social role through which we meet the outside world. That flexibility is normal. The problem begins when the role becomes so dominant that you forget it is a role. The persona is supposed to be something you can use. But sometimes you begin living as though you are the persona. And then being alone can feel strangely uncomfortable, because there is no obvious social role to perform. So the mind creates one anyway. You may have an image of yourself as confident, independent, intelligent, disciplined, emotionally mature, creative, or successful. Then a private moment contradicts that image. You feel jealous. You need reassurance. You waste an afternoon. You become angry. You feel uncertain. Suddenly, you are not simply experiencing an emotion. You are watching yourself fail to be the person you believe you should be. For the sake of this video, we can call that the identity performance gap. The discomfort that appears when your actual private experience does not match the identity you believe you are supposed to maintain. And this creates a strange paradox. You can become so determined to be yourself that authenticity itself becomes another performance. You think, I am the kind of person who does not care what people think. Then you spend 20 minutes trying to prove to yourself that you do not care what people think. You think, I am confident. Then you become nervous and feel that you have failed. You think, I am independent. Then you need reassurance and feel ashamed. The performance has simply moved inward. You are no longer performing only for society. You are performing for your own idea of who you are supposed to be. This is why self-awareness can sometimes become exhausting. Self-awareness can help you understand yourself, but excessive self-monitoring can make you stand outside your own experience and watch yourself living. You are talking to someone while evaluating how you sound. You are telling a joke while judging whether it was funny. You are enjoying yourself while wondering whether you look like you are enjoying yourself. You are trying to relax while monitoring whether you are relaxing correctly. Life begins to feel as though it has a camera angle. There is an important distinction here. The goal is not to eliminate every social role or become completely unfiltered. That would not necessarily be freedom. The healthier goal is flexibility. To know that you have different roles without believing that any one role completely defines you. To perform when a situation requires it without forgetting that the performance is a role. And to be able to put the role down when you no longer need it. It is also important not to attack the persona. The performance often developed for a reason. Maybe being impressive helped you feel secure. Maybe being agreeable prevented conflict. Maybe being funny made rejection easier. Maybe appearing independent protected you from the vulnerability of needing someone. Understanding the pattern is more useful than shaming yourself for having it. So the next time you notice yourself feeling like you are performing while alone, don't immediately ask, "What's wrong with me?" Ask a different question. Who do I imagine is watching? Not literally. Psychologically. Whose judgment are you anticipating? Whose approval are you still trying to preserve? What version of yourself are you trying to maintain? And perhaps the most revealing question, what would I do differently right now if there were absolutely nothing to prove? You may not get an immediate answer. That is okay. The purpose is not to manufacture a perfectly authentic self. It is to notice the difference between something you genuinely prefer and something you are doing because an invisible expectation tells you that you should. You might discover that some ambitions really are yours. Others may have been inherited. You might discover that some opinions were formed in response to people you are no longer trying to impress. You might even discover that the person you are still trying to prove yourself to is no longer part of your life. And that can be a strange kind of freedom. Sometimes we spend years responding to an audience that has already left the room. The teacher is gone. The old friends have moved on. The former partner is no longer watching. The people who once judged you may not even remember the things you still carry. Yet their imagined reactions can continue influencing what you wear, what you pursue, what you hide, and how you behave when you are completely alone. That is why solitude can reveal something social life often conceals. When nobody is watching, you may finally notice which parts of you still believe they are being watched. Maybe the real problem is not that you do not know how to be yourself. Maybe you have simply become extremely good at anticipating how yourself will be received. You don't just experience the moment, you evaluate it. You don't just have an emotion, you watch yourself having it. You don't simply become someone. You compare yourself with the person you believe you should be. And freedom may not mean reaching a point where nobody else's opinion matters. It may mean knowing when their opinion is relevant, when it is not, and when an old audience is still influencing you even though the room is empty. So the next time you are alone and catch yourself suddenly becoming aware of how you look, sound, or appear, pause. Don't shame yourself. Don't force yourself to become more authentic. Just notice. There may be an audience in your mind, and instead of asking how to impress it, ask whether you still want to perform for it. Because becoming more yourself may not require discovering some perfect hidden personality. It may simply require realizing that you do not have to keep auditioning for every room you have ever been in. And sometimes, the quietest form of authenticity is doing something ordinary without needing to imagine how it looks from the outside. So ask yourself, when you are completely alone, what part of you still feels like it has something to prove?